Welcome to 24 KEIRUS. I'm Kelley Johnson, founder and CEO of KEIRUS by KJE. We're a strategy consulting and leadership development firm specializing in the DEI space, really helping organizations to transform their workplace cultures. Right now, we're in a series about employee resource groups, and I've had a lot of fun. I hope you've had fun listening in to the conversation with Dameka Stringer. She is a DEI practitioner and leader, has more than 20 years of human resources experience, and she has been dropping these amazing golden nuggets about employee resource groups and their impact. So Dameka, thank you for coming back and continuing this conversation with me today.
I'm loving these references to dropping golden nuggets. Like, you're just like making my day. Like when I'm having like a blah day, I'm gonna like text Kelley and say, "Can you mention a little bit about nuggets?
Drop golden nuggets.
Drop or something."
Awesome. Well, you have. I mean, you've talked about the human case. You've talked about individual leaders, which I love that term. You've talked about having, positive disruption and the courage that it can take, sometimes the loneliness of being that positive disruptor. So we believe in giving credit where credit is due, and you've just been an amazing partner over the years, and truly a privilege to walk alongside you. I want us to continue talking about ERGs and, there's how they can help create an environment of respect and empathy. And I think about, speaking of positive disruptor, when I was researching sort of when did ERGs first get started, the credit actually goes to Xerox. Back in the 1960s, there was a black leader who came up with the idea. There was some major racial tension, of course. It was in the middle of the 60s. But Xerox actually gets credit for being the first company to create what would evolve into employee resource groups. It was a bit more of kind of an affinity group, I think, at the time, or like an employee caucus. But we always need that pioneer, that leader to get us started, and really grateful for the people who sacrificed and went before us at Xerox, and even the CEO at the time who embraced it, because that was likely, a revolutionary idea at the time. So I would love to get your thoughts about when we look at ERGs and, are we prepared today, less so, more so, to truly embrace ERGs and their ability to create empathy and respect in the organization? Let's talk a little bit. We started with a little bit of a history lesson, but let's fast forward to where we are in this climate, post-pandemic, post-George Floyd. What are your thoughts about where we are today?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So my perspective when it comes to that, I think we have pockets, and I think the pockets stem from a number of things. Demonstrating empathy, I think, is critical. I think meeting people where they are, and truly creating safe spaces for people to fumble. Yeah. Because I think that speaks to the complexity of humanity, right? I just recently heard this amazing speech by, Halle Berry. I forget which award show she was at, but she rocked it. Even thinking about it now gives me chills. I listen to it often. And, she talked about the complexity of humanity, and she talked about how, we can be confident and we can be fearful at the same time. And she, just compared a number of things. Again, the complexity of humanity. We can be great sometimes, and we can be meh sometimes. And that's okay. So I think it's recognizing that everybody's on a different level. everybody is coming from a different background. Everybody is looking through a different lens. And so empathy is key. Because this is a complex, again, I'm just going to keep reiterating because I'm in this space. It is a complex, it's a fulfilling space, but it is a complex space. And to your point about George Floyd, I mean, I can recall even how we navigated that at my former amazing organization that I used to work at. And I think we did a really great job for a host of reasons. One, we recognized it. It wasn't even a question. It was just a matter of how to honor and to honor what happened, and again the human case, how it was impacting certain employees of a certain demographic, or Black and African American employees. So meeting people where they are, one of the things I hear a lot, and especially when we first got started with my former employer, was that, hey, I'm not really sure. I kind of see the benefit of employee resource groups, but don't you think they can kind of create divisiveness, and, you're breaking us up into groups, and, you got the Black group here, and you got the Hispanic Latinx group, and you got the LGBTQ group, and you got the women and the multi-generational. And so I say the very opposite, right? Because one, it took bravery to create that portfolio and to continue to grow that portfolio of various groups, because these groups are a microcosm of our society.
Yes.
Right? And so we can walk through those corporate doors every day, but nothing changes until something changes. Right? Nothing changes until something changes. So again, if done right, and we're creating these safe spaces, we're creating psychological safety, we're creating spaces where people can be truly authentically who they are. We're giving people a seat at the table. We are respecting not just a seat at the table, because there's a difference between a seat, right, and actually being heard. You can have a lot of seats. I mean, we can pull up seats. We can go find seats in the conference room and somebody's empty office, and we can pull up seats. But I can tell you personally, I've been in positions where I've had a seat, right, but I haven't had a voice.
So powerful.
It's just like when I think about, putting people into positions, but not giving them power. So you got the position, but you don't have the power. So what's the benefit of that? Yeah. So being inclusive and making sure that if somebody is at that table, that they just don't have a presence from a representation standpoint. So you can check that off and say, well, so-and-so is present, but what did they contribute? What did you allow them to contribute? Did you meet them where they were? Did you speak to the value of their contributions? I think that's really important. People want, and again, the human case, people want to feel like they're more than, individuals that are producing widgets.
Right.
Right. They want to feel like they're making a significant, meaningful contribution. And that they matter, and that they have a voice, and that people are actually, not just that they have a voice, that people are listening to it.
That's right.
And applying, what they've shared, and recognizing what they've shared. So I think that's where all that comes in with the, employee engagement and satisfaction and recognition, and people feeling value, because they're just not talking the talk, but they're walking the walk. So I think empathy and a host of, other factors are really important. And I think employee resource groups really help us. Like I mentioned, within an organization, right, you got it truly represents a microcosm. of society. And so if we can get it right, because this is our work, if we can get it right in the walls of corporate, then that spills over,
Yes.
to our communities, right? So it's just not, oh, we do this within the walls of this organization, but I am learning things. I am learning to use my voice. I am learning to be brave. I am learning to be a positive disruptor. I am learning to understand other cultures. I'm learning to ask the right questions. Or I'm learning to fumble and possibly offend someone, but I have the tools to know how to navigate and reconcile that. So if I do that outside of the organization, then I know how to navigate that, hopefully in a way where that person will show me grace. Right? Because none of us knows everything about anything. We know some things, right? But we don't know everything. And so I say empathy, grace, and making sure that even though we have chairs pulled up to the table, that we are being inclusive, and everybody has a voice and is respected.
Yeah.
And we meet people on their level.
I love that you brought up that kind of common concern around employee resource groups, that aren't we just causing more division? Aren't we creating segregation? And I remember this comes up often in one-on-one conversations with senior leaders. And I remember sharing with an executive team, and that question came up. And I said, ERGs provide a safe space for members of your employee communities that they may not have that same level of belonging when they are working with their normal team, right? And so, and generally we're talking about white people, right? White people not feeling like there is an ERG for me. And so that's when we have to say, first of all, allyship and membership of every person, regardless of how you present, is so critical for any successful ERG effort. But I also think that it's okay for employees to have a place where they have a sense of belonging, because in their normal day job, they may not have it. They may not feel like they can truly be their authentic self in their normal day-to-day, and ERGs provide that benefit, which then turns into retention. It returns, the return to the organization is, I'm able to keep these employees. They're showing up more fully versus holding back because I'm covering, I need to hide aspects of who I am. So I appreciate you for bringing that up, and this has been yet another great conversation. We've probably got like another 60 seconds, but is there anything else you want to add to this before we wrap up, Dameka?
No, I think you hit it in terms of your high-level summary. To your point, employee resource groups, they are a safe space. And one thing that you mentioned that I appreciate is the allyship piece, right? Because that speaks to a lot of people that aren't a part of those demographics. They have a fear, right? Because this space, you really have to be vulnerable, and it's okay actually having fears and being fearful of being vulnerable. That's actually kind of normal, so it's okay, right? And so when you're an ally, you get to lean into spaces that probably normally, if you're, I'll take it to this level, if your personal circle isn't real super diverse, this is probably your only space where you can actually lean in and you can observe, you can hear, you can listen, you can learn. And that can change and shape the way you think, reshape, right? We talk about learning, unlearning, relearning. It's just powerful. The ally role is so powerful So ask the questions. There is no dumb question in diversity, equity, and inclusion because it's so complex and so nuanced. Ask the questions to the very cultures and groups that live it every day, right? And they will extend you grace in those safe spaces. And you walk away from that like, wow, I was brave. Like I was in a safe space. Like, I asked the question, because we all got questions. I asked the question I've been thinking about like for years, about this particular community, but I never had an opportunity or I never felt safe, to tap somebody on the shoulder and say, hey, can I ask you a question when it comes to whatever related to your particular demographic? Now you have that opportunity. So it just strengthens your, cultural competence, intelligence, everything. So allyship is so critical.
Okay, we're going to have you come back and talk about allyship. But this has been great. Yet another great conversation. Thank you so much, Dameka. And thank you for tuning in to 24 KEIRUS. We are truly honored that you would include us in your diversity, equity, and inclusion journey. And we hope that through this podcast that you will find resources to help you live a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion 24/7.